Hello, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I've had the opportunity to learn from many over the last 5-10 years. Some actually spoke in this room. And I hope by me speaking here, there's something that will resonate with you that you'll be able to take and utilize in your life. I want to step back to when I was 6 years old. I wasn't always, so when I was 6 years old, it's funny how we look back and like things, how you progress in life. But my teacher, my learning resource room teacher, Miss Kent, told my mom, when I practice, this doesn't happen. So told my mom and my parents that I would never be able to read. And that's probably a concerning thing. Seeing that I have a 2 and 4, I could see how they'd be concerned. I wasn't aware of it. I wasn't aware of that situation, but I knew something was different. I knew something wasn't right because I was separated from my peers. And I hated that. I hated being excluded. I hated not being a part of that group. Well, I was lucky. My parents, I was lucky because my parents were there to say, you can achieve whatever you want as long as you're willing to put in the time, effort, and make things happen. And when this TEDx thing came up and I was thinking about things, I was hearkening back to like my whole life. What I learned is I had to do it myself. I would have to work a lot harder than my peers to be included with them. I would have to be creative and figure out ways to make things work for me because I wanted to be included in that group. So a few weeks recently, I came up with this word. Next slide, or buttons, sorry. Next. I came up with this word, duarchy. Duarchy. So I'll go into that a little bit. But hierarchy, I hate a hierarchy. I don't know about you guys, but I freaking hate it. I hate where there's a big corporate ladder. My feeling is if you can do, that's amazing. That's what it's about. It's about being a doer. Now, monarchy is a king, but this word I came up with was duarchy. To me, doers are on top. And it's not just about doing, it's about creatively doing. I have a 7-year-old nephew. I was telling him about the word I made up, and he goes, Uncle Jason. And I was like, didn't think he understood a word. Uncle Jason, that's amazing. You're saying when you're different, when you want to be different, you want to be unique, stand out, duarchy is a great word because it's all about creativity. It's about being different, so why not make up a word? I'm like, Jake, you're 7 years old, but I just learned something from you. And that was the solidification of duarchy. And duarchy, just to put a little analogy, is really a DIY. You guys know do it yourself. Do it yourself. I think this world today, more than ever, is about doing things yourself, pushing, taking risk, failing, doing, failing, doing. All successful people I know have failed tremendously, but they also did. Because you can't fail if you think about it and talk about it. You got to take action. Crazy amount of actions. So, we are living in this duarchy world. And when I was in grade school, I felt different. I was told I was different, and it sucked. So, we go to here. Wrong way. We go here. I grew up in a city called West Bloomfield, Michigan. There was a standard trajectory where you go to school, get good grades, maybe go to grad school, get a job, then get another job. And that's your life. My trajectory, right there, Mrs. Kent, who actually probably motivated me to do this, but Mrs. Kent said this is where he should end up. But here's what happens, in my opinion, in my life. You have 2 choices you can make. You could go the easier way out, or you could say, the heck with that. I'm going to figure out a way, and I'm going to execute. I'm going to figure out a way to say the heck with that. I'm going to turn those no's into yeses. I don't care what anyone says. I'm going to figure out a way. And that's all it was about. When you turn those no's into yeses and you say the heck with that, you end up here. You end up building empires. You end up figuring out ways. You don't let these negative things get to you. Because if you do, you go down this bottomless abyss, you go down this abyss that you never turn it around. And it's so important that anyone who has any challenges, just continues to do, fails and does, because you're going to be successful. And then when I finally stopped listening to this, I stopped listening to the so-called experts and started pushing those away. That attitude is how I went through middle school, went through high school, and like I still remember when I got a 4.0 in high school. I mean, it's still on the wall where my parents' house. But that attitude got me to actually the Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan. So that was, So a few years go by, and there's, I guess, Ross School of Business. So a few years go by, and in college, I was a stock market junkie. Loved the stock market. I had two goals in life: be on CNBC and work at a hedge fund. So I graduated college. I didn't go do that right away. I had different internet startups. Some were successful, some weren't. But I wanted to go back to those goals. And my goal, as I said before, was work at a hedge fund. Now, remember, I was told no, no, no. So when I go for things big. I don't like to do things small. Big or no small, So I basically said I want to work for the biggest hedge fund manager in the world, the one who's the most outspoken, the most successful, who only basically hires Harvard MBAs, hires traders, hires people that are going to print him money with experience. But that's who I wanted. So what I do, I did the DIY mentality. I started calling and emailing, but I wasn't successful. I mean, it was probably 30 times. So I was going to quit. I was going to say, okay, I'll move on to the next one. Actually, someone advised that I did that. He's like, you're done with that one. And then I remembered I had it so hard in elementary school that me giving up is a slap in the face to everyone who supported me. So, and this is Dan Loeb. Third point's Dan Loeb, and you could see some letters. He's a guy that's driven change at hundreds of companies, Yahoo. He's as big as you get. So I said, you know what? I'm not going to give up. That's too easy. No more easy way out. And I started this newsletter, a weekly newsletter called the Dan Loeb Digest. Now, this could be considered crazy, a little crazy, but I call it different, the Do-Arky way. The Dan Loeb Digest was sent to one person every week for like 14 weeks straight, to Dan Loeb himself. And Dan Loeb started writing back. Wrote back a few times. Some were really harsh. That's the dumbest idea. That's a great idea. I mean, when I say, guys, he's as strong and outspoken as there's no one bigger. And then I finally get this email from Dan Loeb. Love to talk. And you have to remember, this is a guy who's a billionaire who everyone in the investment space wanted to be a part of. I got to him, a guy that was told you can't read, you can't do this, and I didn't have the resume or credentials. I didn't have the training experience. You always look for experience and Ivy League pedigrees, but you can't let that ever stop you. So continue my journey of finding my way. I ended up working at a company that was far less inspiring. Basically, I worked there, and after a few months, I was 20 to 30% of the revenue. And my bosses said, that's not in your daily job. You can't keep doing that. You gotta do what you're supposed to do. And I'm like, this sounds all too familiar. Being told no and you can't. And I get it. Sometimes it makes sense. But in this case, I was like, I'm tired of this. And it finally hit me that I wanted to create a Do-Arky with a company with no limits, where anyone can succeed, where there's more yeses than nos. It's all about giving people an opportunity. I founded a financial media company, Benzinga, located here in Michigan. When I started this, everyone's like, that's crazy. We were going to compete with the guys called Wall Street Journal, CNBC, Bloomberg. It was something that just didn't make sense. But now the company exists with over 15 million people reading us monthly. And we have the biggest partners in the world. You have to remember, this was something 3 years ago, just got angry and started. And the way this succeeded, it wasn't by luck. It was what I learned over the years by being a little unconventional. If we would have done things a traditional way, we would not have any chance of success. But everyone at the company, individually and collectively, approach it the Duarky way, finding unique things to make things happen. And the crazy thing is, the really crazy thing, the world hasn't, the thing that's really crazy about this company, we really haven't done anything yet. We are determined to be the biggest success story ever in the state of Michigan. And that will happen eventually, all the way from Michigan to the hundreds of millions of people that read our stuff. And so then I want to get to how I approach this Duarky and getting creative. So there's a lot of big partners around, but how do you stand out in a sea of Me Too companies? Everything you do, you got to be memorable and be creative. This is Stephen Ross, the Ross School of Business. We were trying to get a deal with a big partner, and we really listened to what they're doing. One of the partners is coming in from the UK to a Miami Dolphins game. I don't know Stephen Ross at all. So our team, we're sitting down, we're like, what should we do? We find out he's coming to town. I go up there. He speaks. I approach him after. There's a line of 20. The guy before me asks, like, hey, can I pay you $20,000 to borrow your box? I'm like, okay, I'm in big trouble right now because we don't have any money. We're all startup and, scrapping along. I'm like, Stephen, we're a startup in Michigan. I need your help. I got these guys from Miami coming to town. Remember, if you guys don't know Stephen Ross, he just donated $200 million to UofM, a total of $300 million. He looks at me. He sees me. I actually bring him something I show him, and I was trying to, get him excited. He comes back to me. He's like, here's my cell phone. Call me in 2 hours. I'm like, you sure? Yeah. I call him in 2 hours. Next thing I know, the next day, the game was the next day, the guys who were going to sit in the top level of Dolphin Stadium, literally the top level, the worst seats in the house, are sitting right behind Reggie Bush. And these weren't 2 tickets or 1. These are 5 field passes. They're on the field. To this day, those guys, they can't be more thankful. And what this demonstrates, it's not just being creative and doing it the Duarky way. Successful people, in my experience, want to help out people. But the key is to show that you are excited, that you have the do whatever it takes mentality. And then they want to help you out. Come, have a value proposition. Now this guy, I'm friends with now. He's a supporter, as nice as can be, and that extends everywhere. And you can do that in your daily lives. It doesn't have to be starting a new company. For example, here's another interesting anecdote that I thought you guys would enjoy. We're going to step back a couple slides, though. Okay. So Pete Rozelle, NFL commissioner. Back in 1981, this guy writes him a letter. Says, hey, I admire you. I think you're awesome. I would love to work at the NFL. He didn't say, I want to work as an associate. I want to work as a vice president. I want to get $100,000. He just wanted an opportunity. He appealed to Pete Rozelle's ego and said, I want to be there. I love the NFL. Well, let's forward 32 years later. Guess who wrote that letter? Roger Goodell, the current NFL commissioner. That is what I'm talking about here. That is what I'm talking about. That's in every single person here. You guys don't understand. If Roger doesn't write that letter, who knows where he ends up? Maybe he's cutting trees. Now, trees is a commendable job. Don't get me wrong. But he went out there, wrote the letter, and obviously once he got the job in the NFL, he made his own luck. But the first step, he didn't have a false limitation on himself. He wrote this letter. This wasn't a cover letter with a resume. This was not a cover letter with a resume talking about what he's accomplished. This was a guy that went to an average college and said, hey, I want to be part of this. I admire you. And Pete Rozelle, again, appealing to successful people. They want to help when they see that passion. This is not hard stuff. It's a question of doing and executing and following through. Most people don't, they miss that last part. And this thing, this culture of like doing this Duarky, of extending yourself and being different, is something I espouse at Benzinga. So at Benzinga, we all have abilities to create our own luck. Remember I mentioned earlier I wanted to be on CNBC? Well, there we go. That did, well, There's a slide here of me on CNBC. These are two other guys at our company who were on CNBC as well, and that was a China station. But I was the guest host on their show multiple times. Why? Because I reached out. I didn't listen to like, hey, I don't have all the experience. I'm not an analyst for 30 years. These guys knew to the markets a few years ago. But we don't believe in waiting to do things. So we could wait until we're more mature. But if you're going to have that do-it-yourself mentality, let's fail by doing. Let's do-archy it. Let's say, hey, guys, we want to be there. And we've been, the media comes to us now first. It's a crazy thing. Remember, we're in Detroit. We could have started this company in New York or Chicago where there's a lot more synergies, a lot more people that we meet that are serendipitous. We make it happen from here. So whenever I hear there's an excuse where a company needs to be located, we made it happen from here. Open a Windows 8 device. We are default next to Bloomberg and CNBC. It's amazing. And that's from Detroit, guys. That's from Detroit. And then so what I wanted to really get to is this. This is obviously Home Depot. Home Depot and Lowe's, there's a reason for it. Home Depot and Lowe's, a couple decades ago, started this DIY, this do-it-yourself. Fix the shower, fix your fence, make your house look pretty. However, the beautiful thing now is the do-it-yourself, DIY, or as I prefer to call it, and my nephew Jay, because it's creative, the do-archy is all about this. So you want to create something. I heard someone talk to me, and the reason I'm bringing this up, and they're in this room, is because there's a hotel they wanted to buy in Livonia, Michigan. And I'm like, anyways, I talked to the person, and I'm like, stop talking about it. Just do it. Just go and do it. Take action. Be the Roger Goodell. Be the Roger Goodell. Meaning, there are companies now, Airbnb. You could rent out rooms. You want to have a dog kennel? I have friends that are big dog lovers. Dog vacay. Start your business there. There are no excuses for anyone in this room. It's not even just starting a business. At a company. So you got a company, you want to move up the ladder if they still have that hierarchy and they didn't adopt my do-archy yet. If they didn't, please have them call me. But you want to move up that ladder? Right now, go home. Go on WordPress. Create a blog for your company. Show it to your boss. Show it to the team. You can create immense value every moment of every day now because all these tools are there. Arts and crafts, you have Etsy. I mean, this global nature of how we're able to produce and network and make things happen has never been around in our lifetime. Never been. It's almost sometimes too easy. When Roger Goodell did it, he had to figure out his address, write a letter. I mean, it was a process. Now, it's a question of who is the doer and who is the creative. And the last part of what I wanted to say is we at Benzinga and Markify espouse that completely. We give investors tools. So we're a financial information provider, and we give them tools to put in their own hands because who's going to care about your money more than you? So to conclude, in a do-archy company, in a do-archy world, you can accomplish amazing things by choosing to build and do. Because look at me. If I listen to the voice of the teacher that you'll never read, well, I sure know I wouldn't be here but I was really lucky that I had a mom and dad that instilled in me and gave me the opportunity to go learn and instilled in me that I had to make it happen on my own. And without that, I wouldn't be here today. So ask yourself, when you leave this room today, which voice will you represent? Will you represent the you can't? Or the voice of yes? The voice of do-archy? Thank you very much.